Hey everybody, so this is a one of the first zero waste Dutchess Zooms we've had in quite a while. I'm Joel Tyner, former county legislator for Dutchess County. If anybody else wanted to introduce themselves on this Zoom call.
Well, let's hear Neil's.
Well, let's before Neil talks, let's introduce ourselves.
Okay, Judy Malstrom, Town of Clinton, Dutchess County. Zero Waste Dutchess.
Neil Seldman, Zero Waste USA.
I'll come in on Neil's microphone so we're near each other. Mike Ewall, Energy Justice Network.
Doreen Tignanelli, a Town of Poughkeepsie resident, Dutchess County resident, and I've been active in environmental issues for about 25 years now.
I'll jump in. Manna Greene, Ulster County legislator. I serve on the Recycling Oversight Committee, and I was the recycling coordinator for Ulster County for 10 years in the 1990s. We took our recycling rate from 4% to 40% in a decade, but it's hovered around there, and we really need to get to 80 to 90%.
And the co-founder of Ranked Choice NY and parliamentarian for the 1981 Rhinebeck High School student government.
Yep, my name is Dave Heller, Dutchess County resident, composter, gardener.
All right. Did anybody else want to introduce themselves or no? All right.
Hey, yeah, sure. I'm Nazir. I'm a founder of the Minnesota Environmental Justice Table, which has been around for about 6 years.
All right, and thank all you guys for being on with us. Hit it, Neil.
Hi, everyone. I just want to make a short statement about the dilemma of counties and cities that have incinerators that hire consultants to prepare zero waste plans. Inevitably, these consultants produce zero waste plans which include continuing to incinerate garbage for 10, 15 more years into the future. This has been a standard pattern. And another standard pattern is that recycling, composting, reuse, waste reduction, all the legislation and new rules that citizens have been working toward originates at the local level and ripples upward as political strength is gained. And that when you hire a consultant and you're paying the consultant's fees, the consultant is going to conform to what you want to see happen in the report. Thus, in case after case, cities and counties that have incinerators wind up with a zero waste report that calls for continued incineration. And this is common sense. Whoever is paying the fees, they will determine the direction and even the outcome of the report. And a way to avoid this, which has been done in many, many other communities, is for the consultants to be hired by the organized citizens. And this has happened because the community groups have raised money and hired zero waste technicians such as Mike Ewall, who will be speaking momentarily, myself and my colleagues, Zero Waste USA, Gary Liss, Rick Anthony, Ruth Abbey, they, with some participation from me, but mostly their work, has developed more zero waste plans for communities than any other single group in the United States. So what you can expect when a large consulting company gets hired by the county, you can expect to be disappointed. And because they will maneuver the data, even maneuver interviews with community groups to make sure that their final presentation justifies the continued use of the incinerator. And last thing I'll say in this introduction to the topic tonight is that all the cities and counties that are reaching close to 90% diversion through reuse, composting, and recycling, which is we call zero waste. Zero waste, the official term is zero waste or darn close to it, and we consider 90% plus as darn close. And these are cities like San Diego, California, Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington. Their zero waste programs, and all of these, the cities that I mentioned, are at 60, 70% diversion, going toward 90%. All of those cities, before they started investing in zero waste, defeated a planned incinerator. And the key the lesson we learned from this is that the first thing you need to do to establish a zero waste system is to end incineration. And each of the zero waste reports that the community groups have developed emphasizes this point. And after the incinerator is closed, these plans have a step-by-step schedule of what needs to be done, what month, what legal procedures have to be followed to close the incinerator and start implementing the zero waste systems, which I said before: composting, recycling, and reuse.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. I know that, Mike, you're next, but I just wanted to real briefly, just to interrupt for a second. The Montgomery County, Maryland has an amazing zero waste plan, transition plan that Mike and Neil helped author, also in Hennepin County, Minneapolis, Minnesota. But I just wanted to, so people, anybody watching this, just a little bit of history, background, context. 2007, the Democrats take the majority of the Dutchess County legislature for the first time. I become the environmental committee chair. December 2008, I go to Albany for the first zero waste conference of New York State that I'm aware of. Paul Condon is there, Neil Seldman is there speaking. My mind is blown, completely blown. 3 months later, Neil is speaking at the Dutchess County legislature. We actually get a resolution passed unanimously. All 11 Republicans, 1 conservative, and 12 or 13 Democrats, 12 Democrats. Everybody votes unanimously for this resolution for Dutchess County Planning Department to access federal stimulus funds from Obama's funding there, the federal stimulus, for zero waste planning. That's one of many environmentally minded resolutions that the county never, even though the county legislature passed it, the county executive never did anything. In the fall of 2023, a few years ago, Doreen finds out that the solid waste management plan is about to be reenacted. There's going to be public hearings. The Dutchess County they've picked a little bud, a little seedling as the graphic, because they're saying, oh, they're going environmental, they're increasing composting. Because of Mike and Neil and Doreen and Mom and Dave, when we did a bunch of Zooms, we actually got even environmentalists in Dutchess County who had given up on fighting the incinerator, got all on board. My mom and Neil co-chaired a meeting at Vassar College, a forum. 60 people came out, and there was a rebirth of the zero waste movement in Dutchess County. And the top Democrat in the county legislature in December 2003, Yvette Valdez-Smith, the very first budget amendment they put forth, the Democratic caucus put forth in December 2023, was for a zero waste plan. That did not go anywhere. But in December of last year, Lisa Call, new Maverick, firebrand, progressive Democratic county legislator for the town of Poughkeepsie area, I believe, she got a resolution passed and the Republicans voted for it. And then what happened in April of this year is they said, well, it's going to be a waste reduction and diversion study. And of course, what Mike and I and Neil and my mom and everybody and Doreen, we've been saying, hey, if there's going to be a waste diversion study, it really needs to be done by a ZWIA certified consultant, ZWIA.org, Zero Waste International Association. And that didn't happen. And they also changed the original, even though you can find Dutchess County press releases celebrating the zero waste study. In April, we found out from Carrie Russell the deputy commissioner for Dutchess County Solid Waste Management, that, oh, it's just a waste reduction. And then we just found out in the last month that it's resource recovery systems, which has a less than stellar track record elsewhere. So I just wanted to bring people up to date a little bit. And Mike, you can talk about a lot of things, but before our YouTube is over, I would love it if you delved into the specifics, the numbers on the toxins. But you don't have to do that now, but before the meeting's over. All right, take it away, Mike Ewall of the Energy Justice Network.
You want to silence your computer and I'll switch the audio? Or I'll go speak through. I'll go speak through. Yeah. Okay, I'll be easier. Sure. All right, hi everyone. I was trying to find what I said at the Zero Waste New York meeting back in April, but I can't find those notes. I had some very on point stuff there, so I'm going to work from memory here and see what happens. But basically, we've seen several times where residents in groups that we helped get organized in Westchester County in New York, in Dutchess County in New York, in similar work in Washington, D.C., advocate and say, we want a zero waste plan. And these are places that rely on incinerators. Either they own them or they use them. And so we're asking the wrong people. We're asking people who are invested in incineration to do something that undermines incineration. They know what zero waste means because they know they don't like it. They know that they look up the definition of zero waste, which I helped write internationally in 2018 when we made it from 3 paragraphs down to a sentence. It prioritizes not burning over not burying, because we know the science says that incineration and landfilling ash is worse than landfilling trash. And the zero waste hierarchy, which I developed that accompanies it, also peer-reviewed internationally and uses an international standard now, says incineration is unacceptable in a zero waste system. So county officials in Dutchess and other counties take a look at that and say, oh no, we don't want that. We want waste reduction. That sounds good. And so we'll change it to a waste reduction study. And sometimes they'll even tie the hands of the consultants like they did in Washington, D.C. They hired some of the best zero waste consultants we can want them to hire, but they tied their hands and said, you can only talk about waste reduction. You can't talk about what is happening on the disposal side. You can't weigh in on incineration versus landfilling. So they managed to sneak in the zero waste hierarchy image, which says incineration is unacceptable. That's as far as they were able to do in that plan, which is called a zero waste plan. But in Westchester and Dutchess counties, of course, we're asking people who are invested in incineration to come up with something that they don't want to do. So they rename it, they water it down, and they skip right over the zero waste consultants that applied in both those cases. I was part of, I think, both teams, which applied for these contracts. And they did not select the zero waste activists, consultants, which have some of us also double as activists. So we have 2 hats. And maybe they know that, but honestly, they are activists in their own right. These are not objective companies. When you have companies like Barton and Laguris, how do you say that one that got hired in Westchester County, or RRS, as we just heard about on what happened in Minneapolis, or Arcadis, which is notorious, and they get hired in a lot of places as well. We're seeing a lot from them in South Florida right now. Or SCS Engineers, which we're also battling in South Florida with their pro-incinerator misinformation. Or of the worst of them, GBB, Gershman, Brickner, and Bratton, which some people call GBB, gotta burn a bunch, because that's without. Some of these outfits are literally members of the incinerator industry funded academic think tank in New York City. That they're like the tobacco scientists of the incinerator industry, and they're funded by the incinerator companies and, in some cases, these consultants. And they're also,
you educated us about that before, but what's the name of that think tank that's pro-incinerator in New York City?
WTERT, Waste to Energy Research and Technology Council. Now they just call themselves the Global WTERT Council, because they're now in a bunch of countries.
Aren't they located within Columbia University?
They used to be focused in Columbia University. I think Marco Castaldi, the main scientist, professor behind it, he has, I think, moved to CCNY, the Community College of New York, and so it's now based out of both, but more out of CCNY. They host academic conferences every couple of years on this as well, and they're totally in bed with the industry. They pump out the industry science, so-called, that they want to see. And you also see research outfits. Sorry, not just that's a research outfit. You see lobbying outfits like the Florida Waste to Energy Coalition, which Arcadis and SCS, two of the most notorious pro-incinerator consultants, are members of. These are associations that only exist to lobby for incinerator subsidies and to promote new and expanded incinerators. And these consultants that are being hired as if they're objective solid waste consultants are part of lobby groups to advance that industry. So it's clear, even if they weren't making it dead obvious from these associations that they have, that they are biased, because you just look at one study after another in different communities, and all they do is recommend incinerators, or if they're told, like in Montgomery County, Maryland, help us move away from our incinerator. What are our options? And what does Arcadis do? They find a way to make all the options take 5 to 7 years and cost more than keeping this aging, failing incinerator around. And it took the county to figure out that their consultants were basically lying to them. It took the biggest waste corporation in the world sending in an unsolicited proposal to take the waste within a year straight to landfill, which we told them 5 years ago that could be done within a year. And Arcadis is saying, oh no, it takes 5 to 7 years and tons of money. The biggest waste company in the world is like, oh, here's a proposal. No, and basically proven right. And then the county's like, oh, gee, it's actually cheaper than I use an incinerator. And Arcadis' information even says it's a smidgen less harmful for the climate to use landfills than an incinerator. It's more than a smidgen, but for them to say even anything that's less than an incinerator to use a landfill for climate was huge. So if you pressure them, corner them enough, or just expose them with facts, you find out that these are basically big liars. They're companies that are making tons of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars on consulting contracts to mislead our local governments, send them down the wrong path, tell them false information that can easily be disproved if they actually hired the right people to do things in an objective way. So
Right.
just
What a surprise.
Hell surprise, as JP would say. And I was not good at this when I was in the legislature, but putting until we can build up the zero waste infrastructure, the John Wackman Reuse Innovation Center, just putting, because about half the trash in Dutchess County is burned at the county incinerator in Poughkeepsie, I believe. Putting the trash on railroad cars and sending them up to Seneca Meadows or other landfills. That, I think you've done the analysis over and over again, Mike, in different parts of the country, right? That it's not just less costly, it's actually less polluting. It's like, no, landfills are not a bowl of cherries, right? Landfills are not perfect, but haven't you crunched the numbers and found that landfills are actually not just cheaper, but much less polluting than incinerators?
In any situation, they're far less polluting than using an incinerator or dumping toxic ash in a landfill. That is proven over and over with life cycle assessment studies, the credible ones, not the ones that they play data acrobatics with. And as it turns out, it's about 2 to 3 times less harmful to use the landfill directly than to burn it first and put ash in that landfill. Now, the cost issues can vary. Generally, incinerators cost a lot more than landfills. The newest ones they're trying to build in South Florida, we're looking at price tags of $1.5 to $2 billion just to build a new one, and about 10 years to do it. However, when you're talking about existing facilities, existing landfills, existing incinerators, and the issue involves the incinerators close by and the landfill is some hours away, then the transportation costs could actually make the landfill more expensive. But if not for that transportation distance and the cost associated with the fuel being the issue, the facility itself is going to be cheaper if it's a landfill than an incinerator.
If I could just add to Mike's comments, a zero waste program reduces not only the amount of waste that has to be shipped to landfill, but it changes the nature of the waste. in particular, the organic matter. Any zero waste plan will have a comprehensive universal composting program to take the organics, which is about 15% of household waste, produce a very viable product. There are markets year round all over the country. And by taking the organics out of the waste stream, you reduce one of the major sources of pollution in the landfill. The organic waste has a lot of water in it, which becomes a leachate or a mix of chemicals that has to be collected and treated. And of course, the organics rotting in the landfill adds to methane and climate warming. So zero waste, a zero waste system will deliver to landfill less material, inert material, than an incinerator will need a landfill for their ash. I believe the numbers are that 30% of all garbage that goes into an incinerator comes out as ash, which has to be managed, which should be managed as a hazardous waste. It is not always managed as a hazardous waste.
It's pretty much never managed as a hazardous waste, even when they should, because they know it'll cripple them financially. So they doctor the tests, and EPA helps them do that. But
I have a question.
hold on, Judy. Let me answer another part of Joel's question. Okay. This part about transportation, which is very often misconstrued by public officials who really don't know the facts and don't look for them. However, there's a common misperception that these dirty diesel trucks are so bad that the real issue is the emissions from the trucks, not the landfill, not the incinerator, but the transportation. And that's completely wrong. And it's been disproven even by not just the life cycle assessments that I and others have worked on, but even by the pro-incinerator consultants, like one from CDM Smith that did one for DC and said incinerators are better on everything. But even in their study, they admitted that the transportation is minimal, and they had to doctor the numbers on transportation in order to get one of the results. But you can see in their data, the emissions from transportation are a tiny fraction of the system that we're looking at compared to landfills or incinerators. In the Montgomery County study in Maryland, you would have to drive one of these dirty diesel trucks. They have a rail-based system, but they would be switching the trucks for using landfill soon. But if they did try to use trucks, they would have to drive them as far as California to reach a landfill to almost close the gap between how much worse incinerators are compared to landfills. The emissions from transportation are so small that you'd have to have an impossible amount of transportation to make up the difference, because incinerators are that much worse.
And Mike has developed wonderful charts, bar charts that demonstrate the minimal environmental impact of the trucking of waste.
I know what zero waste is on reduction. What do they say waste reduction is? What is their waste reduction? What do they say it is?
I mean, they usually do the things that we're talking about, not all of them. They will go as far as saying, sure, we'll do some more recycling, and yeah, we'll do some compost and maybe some pilots and take like 5 or 10 years to maybe eventually get to curbside collection and composting, if they go that far. But some of the consultants say, oh no, that's too much, curbside composting, that's some crazy, left coast thing. And they will badmouth the most effective tools for zero waste. The most cost-effective and effective way to quickly reduce waste is called pay as you throw. There are a bunch of other names for it, but basically pay per bag or per bin. And there are consultants I've seen that outright just dismiss that as an option.
Okay.
If I could just add, I'm sorry, Judy, but
that's
pay as you throw, sometimes called unit pricing,
right,
has been so effective that in general, you can assume that within 1 year of implementing a unit pricing system, your recycling and composting rate will go up by 40%, which is a tremendous jump, and it makes common sense. If you pay, you go to the gas station and get fuel for your car, or you pay for the heating of your home, you pay for what you use. And that is the principle of unit pricing. and it's very fair and it's very effective.
It's actually about 44% reduction in the amount of waste generated per person. So it's not the increase in recycling, it's the reduction in waste.
But they don't say that as their waste reduction way of doing things.
No, the
Do they?
consultants
No.
usually
See, we have all these ways of doing it, but they have none as far as I can see. Yeah, maybe composting, but that's not there. They haven't come up with that. That's been going on. We're all doing it already. So, I mean, have they come up with a ban plastic law, for instance, so that nothing plastic will come into the county? That will reduce a lot of waste right there.
We'll reduce some, but usually these anti-plastics things are looking at straws, plastic bags,
Yeah.
maybe styrofoam. Not a huge percentage of the waste stream by tonnage or by volume is these things, but this is what gets all the attention because environmental groups decide they want to go after the single-use stuff. It's good to go after that. We should eliminate things that we don't need, but that's not a giant chunk of the waste stream.
Yeah, the zero waste approach to liquid beverages is refillable containers. You reduce the amount of plastic in the waste stream, and you reduce the amount of waste in general. But I've never seen a consultant report recommend getting a bottle bill that requires refillables.
I just wanted to thank you guys. I just wanted to also, I don't know if these numbers are from Mike or the EPA or both, but 13 pounds of mercury roughly comes out of that smokestack, the incinerator smokestack in Poughkeepsie each year, 13 pounds. Now remember, that's 5,896 grams. Minnesota came out with a study, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years ago. 1 gram of mercury is enough to make a fish on a 20-acre lake too poisonous to eat. 1 gram of mercury. There's about 6,000 grams of mercury that come out of that smokestack each year. 19 pounds of lead, 24 tons of volatile organic chemicals, VOCs, 163 tons of nitrogen oxides, 18 tons of sulfur dioxide, 77 tons of carbon monoxide, 106 tons of CO2. The largest industrial air polluter in the county, according to the Tishman Environmental and Design Center at the New School, and one of the most polluting incinerators in the United States. WPDH reported a few years ago it's one of the most polluting incinerators in the entire country. And there's over 37,000 people in Dutchess County who already, as it is right now, have asthma, COPD, lung cancer, etc. And then, of course, the NYU, Dr. George Thurston, found out that the Baltimore incinerator is like $55 million just for particulate matter. That's the cost, the health cost. So the Dutchess County incinerator has to be at least a $10 million negative impact on health costs. And it's, I think also it's over 110,000 tons of CO2 each year coming. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Anyway, just it's bad stuff. It is bad stuff coming out of that incinerator. Manna, do you wanted to go next possibly, or?
Well, Joel, if I can jump in here and ask Mike or Neil, I think Mike maybe had talked about this once before. So Baltimore had passed was it a Clean Air Act, and was for continuous monitoring? And can you talk about that? Has anybody been successful on, if you can't close the incinerator, has anybody been successful in continuous monitoring of emissions?
Thank you for asking me that. So I wrote that bill. It was called the Baltimore Clean Air Act. It was passed unanimously by City Council in 2019, despite the same company, Wheelwrighter, now Wind Waste, trying to buy off the politicians and stop the bill. They gave a council president $500 and he tried to stop it but couldn't and had to vote for it. Gave $1,000 to the mayor at the time. She tried to stop it and couldn't and ended up signing it into law. So it passed and would have forced the closure of both incinerators. There's also the largest medical waste incinerator in the country in Baltimore, and would have forced them closed in September 2020 because they were not willing to pay the cost of continuously monitoring 20 different chemicals, putting the data on a website real time for the world to see, and reducing their emissions of only 4 chemicals to much more protective limits that are possible to meet, but they did not want to spend that kind of money it would take to retrofit their facilities. So they sued instead, and they got a judge that everyone told us was a good one, but that good judge still screwed up on the law. Environmental lawyers were looking at it, including myself, and like, how the hell did they come to that conclusion? Because they basically flipped the state law around, like industry asked them to, and took a state law that says local governments can have stricter air pollution laws and flipped it around and say they can't. And the legal appeal on that got dropped by the mayor, who was the previous council president, who was trying to do the company's bidding. He went ahead and cut a deal for a 10-year new contract and settled out of our control for coming halfway to the targets in the Baltimore Clean Air Act. So it enabled them to stay open, but it did triple their testing of pollutants that are tested just once a year to 3 times a year, and made them reduce some pollutants a little bit. And basically is not what we wanted. So we're still fighting to shut them down in other ways. However, in Oregon, we got a very similar law passed at the state level. And that law was passed 2 years ago. I helped write that language as well. It didn't come out exactly as we wanted, because legislative processes are, as Joel can attest, are sausage making processes. However, it got through, and the company, which was a Cavanta, now called Reworld Incinerator, the only trash incinerator in Oregon, was affected by this bill. They also burned medical waste in the same plant. And they delayed, they threatened to sue the state, they delayed more, and they went to the legislature to try to repeal the law, and ultimately they gave up. And the plant manager told me to my face that we are closing this for 3 reasons, one of which is this law. And he didn't know that he was talking to the person who wrote it. But the timing of it is so perfectly matched with when they would have had to start complying with this law after all the delays they can use up. It was clear that this law is what did it, that they did not want to install these monitors for even 12 months as all that was required in that bill.
Good.
So they were successful in shutting them down?
Yes, this goes down since January of this year.
Wow, great.
Doreen, thank you for that. And of course, I think there's a town, Coymans up by Albany, that Mike's been working with, that passed this law, that's law about specific emissions, cement plants or tire burning. And so I have no idea what's been happening in the town of Poughkeepsie for the last 2 years. Hardy har har, maybe I do. But I do know that when I found out in November 2023, 2 years ago, because I'm living here in Oregon, 2,500 miles away, but I still monitor electoral politics in Dutchess County somewhat. And I was on the website. I'm like, what? There's a Democratic majority on the Poughkeepsie Town Board? So it is possible. I'm not going to spend a long time talking about this, but I think it's important once in a while that somebody mention openly and publicly that with a Democratic majority or with an anti-incineration majority, potentially, possibly, on the Poughkeepsie Town Board, because the Dutchess County incinerator is located in the town of Poughkeepsie, because New York State is a home rule state and a lot of states are not, that the town of Poughkeepsie could pass a law for really stringent air quality emissions. Like I think Mike or Neil, you told me that Florida had like an amazing, and just so make it so it's state of the art. In order to abide by this law, it's going to have to be state of the art and or maybe continuous monitoring, and that would not be a bad way to shut it down. So I don't want to speak out of turn, get myself in too much trouble. Election day is only 5-6 weeks away. I don't know what, but I will tell you the God's honest truth is that, and I put this on Facebook 2 years ago, right when I noticed that good, strong, progressive Democrat, former county legislator Rebecca Edwards, won her race for town supervisor, town of Poughkeepsie, and a Democratic majority in the town board. If they wanted to over the last 2 years, they could have passed a law like that, and the incinerator would be on its last legs. Now, maybe they didn't feel the populace would be educated enough in time. The media would come after them. I know that the Poughkeepsie Journal would certainly help them fight the good fight on this. Give my sarcasm. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. New York State's a home rule state. Doreen, it's on you in the town of Poughkeepsie. Dave, anything to say? Manna, anybody else?
Yeah, I want to make sure that people know that when we're concerned about emissions from incinerators, that I got involved in this when I was a nurse because I heard that it was dioxin and furans and things that are really highly toxic, carcinogenic, and dioxin is what they sprayed as Agent Orange in Vietnam to defoliate and harm the Vietnamese during that war. And so, and the filters and the scrubbers do the best they can, but what they capture ends up as either fly ash or bottom ash and ends up in a landfill. So incinerators don't do away with the need for landfill. They, in fact, make the landfills more toxic. And the solution is maximizing waste diversion, approaching zero waste, and removing the things from the landfill that can be either kept in the resource stream as part of a circular economy or um, recycled, composted, and repaired, refurbished, and also reduced by reuse. So those are some of the constructive things that we can do. And I just think the more you remove quantity and toxicity from a landfill, then the landfill is becomes an asset rather than a liability to the host community, with less trucks, less emissions, capturing whatever methane is produced in the landfill, but minimizing that by pulling out the organics. And I could go on, but here in Ulster County, we really are trying to fulfill John Wackman's dream of a reuse innovation center, and then also maximize all forms of waste diversion. And then I think we really will be able to site a landfill. One other thing with landfills is you can do a monofill. For example, if we can't recycle all the plastics we can't recycle could go into a monofill. And if there is a good technology that doesn't involve emissions or creating microplastics in the future, that could be exhumed. And anyway, I don't want to keep going because it's very late, but I do want to say that if you get all the key stakeholders together, you really can make a difference. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And I hope other people will. And that means, both branches of government, the executive branch and the legislature, the agency that is responsible in Ulster, it's the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, the municipalities, and the public at large. And I think we're actually moving in that direction. I'm quite hopeful, and I want to thank Mike and Neil in particular for the help that they've been, and hope that we can continue to work together.
Thank you, Manna. I just wanted to build off that a little bit. Thank you for using that phrase, exhumed. You're reminding me that I think it was 16 years ago, Neil educated me about, was it Nantucket or Cape Cod? where they're mining the land
Yes,
for like a 105% recycling rate or something like that. And also
yes.
for reminding me of a Mikeism. That was a Neelism, but a Mikeism. I remember years ago, Mike just threw away as an aside, like, Joel, these are not nuclear reactors. We're not talking about splitting atoms or fusion, putting atoms together. Joel, law of conservation of matter. That's not going anywhere. It's that the toxic stuff is in the ash. And then who is measuring these toxic dioxins, right? Nobody. But the John Wackman Reuse Innovation Center, I know it's late. It's 6:52 on the West Coast, so I don't give a darn. Just kidding. I'll make this quick. Manna, could you just talk for a few minutes about specifically what is envisioned for the JWRIC, the John Wackman Reuse Innovation Center in Ulster County?
Yeah, and Ulster County is ideally set up for a whole what we call hub and spoke system. So we have 19 transfer stations. They each can collect materials that can be reused and give the participants that use their transfer station first choice of whether it be a toaster or a piece of furniture or anything that is still useful. But if things are not used locally, they can be transported to a central processing facility where they are repaired or refurbished. So John has created a system of repair cafes all over Ulster County and beyond. The whole region has repair cafes where people bring things that are broken to be repaired so they don't have to go to a landfill. And fortunately, we don't have an incinerator. Some 25, 30 years ago, I remember standing next to Malcolm Perney, who was considering proposing an incinerator for Ulster County. And the League of Women Voters had done research and discovered how toxic incinerators are, particularly for what they emit into the air that people breathe. And I said, within earshot of one of the principals, Malcolm Perney is too smart to try and build an incinerator in Ulster County. And lo and behold, they backed off. But I do think that John has the right idea that there are so many things in the waste stream. Sometimes people put things out at the edge of their property to let others pick it up or take it to the transfer station, and they'll set aside things. But if it doesn't get taken in a couple of days or a week or so, it can go into a covered trailer. And when that trailer is filled, the UCRA will truck that to a center that teaches people how to repair and has staff available to refurbish, whether it's electronics. Some of them will get shipped off to a place that does electronics recycling, but some of it can be repaired and put back out into a showroom where people will either take them for free or pay a very minimal amount. And the way that is financed is that all that material, whether it be furniture, or equipment, or appliances, or whatever, is not going to a landfill, is being diverted and kept in the material stream. So between the repair cafes and the Reuse Innovation Center and recycling and composting, I think we really can achieve at least 80% and maybe more. And I think that Mike and Neil have spoken to the success stories elsewhere.
I would like to point out that there is a wonderful success story of a reuse innovation center, St. Vincent de Paul of Lane County, Oregon, which is where the city of Eugene is. For 30 years, they have been repairing appliances, electronic scrap, textiles, books, and they earned each of those items that I mentioned. They run as an enterprise, and they earn $1 million a year from repairing and selling materials. And they too gather the materials from transfer stations in the county, and they sell their materials through a network of about 12 or 13 retail thrift stores that operate in the county, and it creates an economy that is very good for low-income people because you can get good products for pennies on the dollar. The other thing I would like to mention is that these reuse companies, reuse enterprises, train people with no marketable skills. They reskill them and prepare them for wages and benefits that you can keep a family together with. So reuse is a critically social, is of critical social importance as well as economic.
Neil, thank you. I think I was in Hyde Park. I think maybe at the Wallace Center, and John Wackman was doing a piece on repair cafes. I think he'd only done one or two or three. Scenic Hudson was there, and then I was also at some forum in New Paltz. This is years back, and I was like, I'm gonna bring that to Dutchess. So the repair cafes we started having at the Rhinebeck Town Hall were the first in Dutchess, spread out all over. I did a whole bunch of them, and now my mom put one together with Dave back in July. My mom's putting together another. I don't know if it's going to be called a repair cave. That's basically what it is. I guess one's coming up at Clinton Town Hall once again in October, maybe.
Right. On the 25th, Saturday the 25th. It's the fall one, and then there's going to be one in spring. And the library and the CSC and other groups in town are behind it. And they love them. So, I mean, I was really only going to have the one. And the librarian said, well, this was really fun for the first one. And I thought, okay, we'll just keep having them. So there's another one, and that's pretty much what I've been doing, working with the CSC. But I was really happy to hear, because Neil, just last week I was thinking, how much is it if to hire our own zero waste consultant? Because I was thinking the very same thing. Maybe we just should get a group of people to raise money for that very purpose. I really think that's a great idea.
Well, we can help by writing proposals to raise money.
Okay, great.
For a real zero waste study.
I'd like that.
Plan of action.
Yep.
For Dutchess County.
The other thing I would like from you and Mike is there are two things. One, I would like to contact Omega Institute to do a weekend of zero waste programming. I think they did it a number of years ago, but it's really time for another one. Are you familiar with Omega? It's a kind of like a feel-good place where people come to stay for the week, and they take classes and everything. But it's
people from all over.
It's got its teach. Yeah, it's got its own compost system. It's very environmentally a good movement, and I'm pretty sure that they had one at some time. But I think we could probably maybe get Paul Cunnett over it when he's in the area and get a group of people. But I need to contact them. I'd like to get a letter from each of you to help me do that.
Sure.
Something to say, this would be a good idea, or this is what we should be doing, or some factual information about the incinerator. I think that would be a good place to have a zero waste weekend, really. And the other thing was I'd like the same, I may be able to use the same letters to contact Vassar, Bard, and Marist to do a lichen study in their schools. I've been trying to figure out how to do this, and the only thing I could think of was to propose a group study of the county by these three institutions, educational institutions. They must have departments that could do this. So if I could get just letters from you, I might be able to come up with what I would like to propose for both those things.
I will be very pleased to get you a letter in the next couple of days. I also want to point out that my organization, Zero Waste USA, provides training programs on zero waste. We have developed zero waste toolkits, and citizens.
That's what I would want in that letter.
I will certainly put that in. And rather than invite me to such a meeting, you probably will do much better by inviting Amanda Waddle, who directs.
Well, here's what Omega does. Omega has people come from all over the world to teach things.
Oh, well, that would be perfect. But
yes, it's perfect. It's a perfect venue, really. It really is a perfect venue.
When she does a training program, the citizens go through the toolkit, and by the end of the session, they have a zero waste plan for their community. So
sounds great.
The number of Dutchess citizens want to become zero waste experts.
I actually think there are.
Good. Well, we'll be in touch.
Also people come from all over the world to this place.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
up too. Go ahead, Manna.
Judy, I'll help with both.
Great.
I'll send the letter. The PowerPoint that I put in the chat, I could present that. And for Omega, and any help I can be, please call on me. Just send me an email as a reminder, and so I can reply directly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. That'd be great.
Malstrom,
Joel,
Smart Community Task Force member. She is now officially
Joel. No, not until January, actually. But I go to all the meetings.
I just also wanted to bring this up. Doreen brings up an accurate statement, which is Omega is great, but their programs are expensive. But Manna knows this.
They are.
One of the key people who used to get the word out. I got a chance to meet Vandana Shiva, Van Jones, Francis Moore Lapay, a whole ton of famous progressives, because once a year, I don't know if Omega still does this, the last 6 years I've been here in Oregon, but once a year there'd be this big environmental thing, and the most famous, wonderful progressives, speakers from all over the world would come. Local activists go there for free. Man, is that
right?
Yeah, Joel,
they do.
Local activists were not there for free. I find that
a lot of them.
I got there for free.
Yeah.
Well, you did, I think, because of Skip, and you were a county legislator, but other people had to pay.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
So I mean, it's a great idea, and like I said, we love Omega, but for the average person, it will be very expensive. Unless there's some, accommodations made. But anyway,
and there's we might be able to find somebody who would underwrite the thing too. But I just want to get Omega, up to date with what's going on, because I don't think they realize just how big a thing zero waste has become across the state. And from Mike, if he would give me a letter about closing the incinerator, how bad it is, and what I'd like to have that from you. Mike?
Sorry. Yeah. What are you asking for exactly?
A letter about closing the incinerator, because that's
to who, saying what? I mean,
just the amount of toxins there are.
Are we still on YouTube, or are we still recording?
We're still, I can cut the recording right now if you want.
Yeah, I think we're done now.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Contact my mom at zerowasteduchess@gmail.com for more. And oh yes, Aaron Brockovich, Doreen, I was there for that one too. And or go to Zero Waste Duchess on Facebook. Mike, thank you. Neil, thank you. Manna, Doreen, Dave, all you, and thanks to Nazir Khan earlier from the Zero Burn Coalition. All right, we're gonna put this on YouTube. Bye
Good
bye.
night.
Stop the recording. And oh, not. I don't want to end the meeting. Darn it. How do I?
Well, Mike, you still there?
Let him end the recording.
Oh, here we go. Stop recording.